We all recall the events that took place both on the campus of the University of California, Berkeley, and within the broader Berkeley community within the last year. Conservative or libertarian, or at least not fringe left-wing speakers would get invites to come speak, and to varying degrees, each time the events would be met with violent resistance, like burning things and destroying property and hunting families and senselessly gang-beating surrendering individuals. At the first Milo event, they even prophetically trashed a Starbucks. And what incredible foresight. They somehow knew that Starbucks would become racist in the future. Despite the best intentions from our comrades who were just trying to promote the common good by force, this quarterly habit of speaking events being met with violent resistance was eventually acknowledged as a problem both by the city and school leadership. The city mayor, while painfully late to the obvious conclusion, did eventually condemn the Antifa thuggery and called for them to be treated as a gang from a law enforcement approach. School leadership also realized that this has become a problem, that facing assault simply for having the wrong opinions at Berkeley might not be the best look from an intellectual integrity perspective or from the business side of student recruitment. And so Chancellor Carol Christ created a free speech commission back in October, assigned to make policy recommendations that might reduce disruption at controversial events, and provide advice about how to reconcile a campus commitment to free speech with Berkeley's values as a community. On April 10th, the commission released this report, a 6-month project in the making, a process that included consideration of testimony from students, the broader campus community, the mayor, the city attorney, the police captain, and others. Curious, it doesn't appear the commission consulted those speakers who were actually deplatformed, but in any case, the purpose here is clear. Identify the problem, find the solution. Simple enough. At least if you get that first part right. But this report is an amazing example of how if you don't get the diagnosis correct, you're not going to make the right prescription, and the disease will persist. Whether it's due to ideological blindness or willful ignorance, this is one of the more impressive mental gymnastic routines I've ever spectated. Let's get to the floor exercise. The report notes that in April 2016, Ben Shapiro appeared at UC Berkeley without incident, and that Shapiro had good things to say about his reception and the event. Shapiro next spoke at UC Berkeley in September 2017, this time met by hundreds of protesters and a $600,000 security bill, with 9 people arrested during that event. So what's the difference, this report asks? What changed such that the same speaker was greeted so differently within only a little over a year's time? Our conclusion, the report says, is that the rise of ultra-conservative rhetoric, including white supremacist views and protest marches, legitimized by the 2016 presidential election and its aftermath, encouraged far-right and alt-right activists to spike the football at Berkeley. This spike the football phrase being borrowed from one of the commission meetings, when one of the commission members accused a student event organizer of insensitively celebrating his touchdown.
It was the Berkeley College Republicans spiking the football by bringing these speakers at such a time when people were upset about who won. Were you guys, because it felt like to me, it feels like it was a spiking of the football. Like, hey, we won, and now we're going to shove it in your face by bringing these speakers.
Well, first off, you know what they say in football if you don't like the other team's touchdown celebration? Stop the touchdown. Win the game. In this case, have better ideas. But beyond that, it's hard to argue that something was thrown in your face when you have the option simply not to attend the event. If you don't like the touchdown celebration, don't go to the game. It's really that easy. And even if this is some type of pro-Trump or even white supremacist touchdown celebration, why would Ben Shapiro be the football spike? He opposed Trump's candidacy. He's still a critic of the president's on a daily basis today, and he was harshly critical of the president's response to Charlottesville. Not to mention, he was the #1 target of anti-Semitic tweets in 2016, according to the ADL gang. If white supremacism and Trump's election motivate you to oppose Ben Shapiro, you're simply not doing your homework. But it was all a big conspiracy, you see, a coordinated effort between very small groups of students and outside organizations working to provoke American campuses into a violent reaction in order to advance a facile narrative that universities are not tolerant of conservative speech. Is a short-skirted group of girls at the bar a coordinated effort to incite sexual assault? Suddenly, victim blaming becomes fashionable as long as we don't like the victims. But even if we grant that this was bait, shame on you. You still took the bait. If you're truly tolerant of distasteful views, there is no way to bait you into a violent reaction anyhow. A tolerant person says, oh, hey, look, there's a speaking event tonight. Oh, but you know what? That guy's not really for me. I guess I'll go do something else with my tolerant life. The assertion of individual rights at the expense of social responsibility by a handful of students had enormous consequences for the campus. The assertion individual rights do take priority over mob rule. That's what makes them individual rights. That's why we protect them. They're more important. They're the foundation of a free society. Anyway, the report says this assertion was damaging because students and staff felt threatened not just by the messages of the speakers, but by the large police presence required to assure everyone's safety. So you create calamity that necessitates police presence. And then you use that police presence to justify your fear, and you use that fear to justify more calamity. If you don't want police presence, stop causing chaos that requires police to resolve. If you want peace of mind, start providing it yourself. This report itself noted that Ben Shapiro previously spoke at Berkeley with no adverse effects. What changed is not some grand conspiracy to harm you. What changed is your campus hysteria. And because the commission misdiagnoses the problem so badly, the recommended solutions are comically inaccurate too. At the end of its findings, the report notes that if you want to prohibit these potentially disruptive events that offer little value as contributions to campus discourse, you'll have to overturn more than 80 years of First Amendment law. That's an astounding statement. Think carefully about what the commission is saying here, and more specifically about what they're not saying. They're not saying, hey, look, we believe in the philosophical foundation of the First Amendment. We believe in the marketplace and the free exchange of ideas to decide what ideas are valuable and what ideas aren't. Instead, they're saying, yeah, we'd like to be able to tell you what ideas are valuable and ban ideas we say aren't valuable. But it's just not practical because that pesky Constitution is preventing us from doing that. You know, it's a little early to start thinking about potential schools for my future children, but this statement alone put a big red line right through Cal Berkeley. The report's list of recommendations buries the lead. They note that potential solutions include relocating free speech zones away from resource centers for triggered students, making the police less intimidating by giving them plain clothes instead of uniforms, asking for state funding for increased security needs. It's not until the very last recommendation to university leadership that the report actually addresses the heart of the problem. Support a free speech culture. Finally, the commission encourages the administration to uphold a culture that is hospitable to a wide spectrum of thought and opinion, and to provide a positive example to our students of constructive and thoughtful debate between passionate advocates for opposing points of view. Not finally. Firstly, you don't say, oh, we'll do our best to foster a free speech culture after we do all this other crap. You say free speech culture is priority number one. You say, particularly as a public institution, the Cal Berkeley administration will uphold the rights of all speakers within the full scope of the First Amendment. You say anyone who threatens that value with violence will be punished by the school and prosecuted to the full extent of the law. You say you will not tolerate threats to not only our most fundamental American right, but to the right most crucial to the intellectual freedom necessary for an educational institution to thrive. You say free speech or get the fuck out, you commie motherfucker. That is how you set the tone for the right culture on campus, and that is how you attract students who will uphold that culture. That is how you will ensure that future events of controversy are held without incident, because you have attracted people with open minds and respect for the rights of others. You set the tone for your campus, Berkeley, not other people. So if your campus is routinely insane, stop asking what others have done to provoke it and start asking why you are so easily provoked. Thanks as always for listening and for supporting this channel. Always appreciate that thoughtful discussion down below, and especially over on Twitter. That is at ML Christiansen. You're always welcome to coming out and chat in my live streams. Those are linked down in the description. Looking forward to it. Come on.